Welcome to Know Your Rights, a programme that explores the legal issues that are particularly important to the black community and provides you with the information that you need to engage with the law with confidence. I'm one of your hosts, Norman Basigu, and I'm joined by co-host Dr. Jennifer Obaseki, our award-winning legal expert.
Thanks, Norman. Hello, my name's Jennifer Obaseki, and I'm a solicitor with 18 years experience and founding partner of award-winning legal practice Obaseki Solicitors.
Now, each episode of Know Your Rights, we will discuss a common scenario relating to an area of law, such as criminal law, housing law, or immigration law. They are the kinds of scenarios that anyone might encounter in their daily life.
The purpose of this programme is to help the black community understand how the law works. It's not offering specific legal advice. If you feel you require legal advice, then you should contact your local Citizens Advice Bureau or a solicitor.
So, here's this episode's scenario. Malaika is one of the few black female employees at a bank. Now, Malaika believes that she has been the target of racial abuse from colleagues. Malaika is also 7 months pregnant. Now, she believes that the bank often makes pregnant employees redundant before their maternity leave starts. And just before her maternity leave begins, Malaika is made redundant. Now, there's lots of things to discuss in this, Jenny, so let's get into it. And let's begin by looking at things from Malaika's viewpoint. So she'll want to know if she has been unfairly made redundant by her employers. So my question to you, Jenny, is very simple. Is there any scope for Malaika to argue she's been discriminated against, either racially or simply because she was pregnant?
Well, Malaika would need to have first received a redundancy notice from her employers of their intention to make redundancies. They can't just select people or give them, a sort of letter and tell them that they've been chosen. There has to be a level of consultation between the owners, the HR, and those who are employed. Some people may voluntarily, put themselves up for redundancy. So Malaika then has to really look into how they went about this. There should be a transparent redundancy process as to how individuals are going to be selected. And if that process is proven to be unfair, then she may have a very good case. Absolutely, it's very wrong and illegal for employers to make people redundant just because they're pregnant. Not only is that discriminatory as a result of them being a female, it's sexual discrimination, but there's actually legislation in place to protect pregnant women. The reason why that legislation is in place is because women need to be able to be free to procreate. And not only that, but it's also to encourage women in the workforce.
Yeah.
So their rights around maternity, appointments, and even being ill during pregnancy are protected. So it really comes down to what was the process for selection.
Okay. Cool. And let's, with that note, let's zoom into this scenario a bit more, especially the element of the racial abuse that Malaika alleges happened to her. So for someone like Malaika or any viewer at home watching that might be in a similar situation where they allege they've been the subject of abuse, for example, racial abuse, what do you think is the best way to evidence that kind of discrimination in the workplace? So, for example, recording secret voice note recordings at work of the people saying these things, or maybe seeking testimonies from fellow colleagues to say, look, this really happened and I'm supporting my colleague Malaika. Jenny, what's the best way, do you think?
Racism, discrimination, harassment, these things are quite difficult to prove. Sometimes they can be micro activities, little scenarios or little words being said and the context not so clear. So first of all, it is wrong and actually illegal at times to record people in the workplace or record people without their consent.
Okay.
If recordings are made because she's so frustrated, if it does go beyond a grievance or even at a grievance, she may have to ask for permission for those recordings to be played. So it's not automatic that you record somebody and then you can just use it as evidence. Okay. It's better that she tries to seek objective evidence that is from emails, how she's been treated, being able to compare how she was treated or spoken to with that of colleagues, if the language, the words used are offensive, to spotlight them, and then also to try and keep a diary. sometimes colleagues don't always speak up because they're scared of losing their own positions or, retaliation in kind of some kind. So trying to keep a diary, trying to seek objective confirmation of the incidents from colleagues, and then trying to, again, raise it with management or HR in the form of a complaint and, if necessary, a grievance. But highlighting that the reasons for redundancy result of race, that may also be proven if she can show that maybe a proportion of colleagues of a BAME or African or whatever her own ethnicity is, origin, have been disproportionately or unfairly treated in comparison to their other colleagues of a different ethnic origin.
Right, thank you, Jenny. And I want to zone in something that you said just there, about human resources and that being a channel you can go through in terms of discussing the issue. For any viewers at home that are currently facing issues in the workplace but want to avoid launching a legal claim, they want to avoid this process and what it could entail, what immediate action would you suggest they take? And I know you mentioned human resources as one, but could you go into more detail about that or other measures such as, mediation or what you feel is best, but essentially a non-legal way to go about resolving these issues in the workplace?
Thank you. Very interesting question, and each organisation and workplace varies, and also this can vary according to the size of a workplace. Some workplaces now have diversity and inclusion sort of groups. Others have union reps, and it's very difficult at times if you have a complaint to go directly to your manager. So the first place for her to look is really within her contract and her staff handbook to see if there's any guidance there as to who she can go to for dispute resolution. If there's nothing there and it's silent, that's a bad sign, first of all. But secondly, she might want to then try and go through HR and ask them as to what the best route is for her to raise her issue. When it's something as serious, though, as maternity rights and also to do with discrimination, one of the things that might help would be a strongly worded letter or email reminding them of what their rights and obligations are to her as an employee, rather than say, I'm going to, you may not be aware, however, your obligations are to do X, Y, and Z, rather than I'm going to sue you or I'm going to take you to court kind of thing. Some employers are a bit ignorant. Some don't actually invest into their human resources and realise that they've breached certain rules and obligations. So a formal reminder as to what their duties are towards her might also go very far.
Right, okay. Very fair, very fair. And if we look at things from the other side of the coin very quickly, what's a likely argument that Malaika's employers will raise to show that their choosing to make her redundant was justifiable and not discriminatory? I know you've touched on the idea of, due process, but could you go into more detail about that and what they need to have done and how they would justify their actions?
As I said at the initial stage, there has to be a level of consultation, of dialogue.
Yeah.
And as an employer, making people lose their jobs is not really a comfortable thing. It's not even an easy thing to do. Number one, they really have to stick to what the law guides them to do.
Yeah.
There has to be that level of consultation. The process needs to be transparent. And not only that, they need to show that what they've done is fair. So if they're going to make redundancies, they need to be able to show that it's performance-based, exactly why that area within their organisation is having the losses of staff, outlining to her that the process was done objectively, fairly, and not as a result of her colour, her ethnicity, or because of the fact that she is pregnant. But it is very difficult when you're dealing with such a mixed, varied group of people within your organisation. You may have some that are older, some that have illnesses, some that have disabilities, again, able-bodied people, and then you may have women who have situations or may be pregnant. So at the end of the day, they have to make sure that they make their choices, have their process and their discussions as they're obligated to do within the law.
Right, thank you very much for that, Jenny. And on a closing note, are there any final thoughts you want to share with me and the viewers on this topic, on the things we've discussed?
We're in a turbulent economic times at the moment due to the fact that there has been the pandemic and there's been the closures of different organisations, and the issue is many places will be making redundancies. So have a look if you get that notice for redundancy as to what it says. If you do need to take legal advice, see who you can go to. Within some redundancy packages, they pay for you to have legal advice.
Okay.
And if they give you a notice, one of your immediate questions might be, you've given me this notice, are you going to pay for me to get independent legal advice? And then you have to also look at the consultation process, the selection process for redundancy, and then also you yourself have a look at your appraisals, see that you have in your own possession information that will help support your position if you object to how the redundancy process is being made.
And with that said, Dr. Jennifer Obaseki, thank you very much for joining us here today.
My pleasure.
You've been watching Know Your Rights. I'm Norman Basigu, from myself and Jennifer, and until next time, goodbye.